Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Mike, and this is RetroGameFix.com, and this is your Serial at Night podcast, episode number 41. And we are here today to talk about the PlayStation conference that happened this afternoon, and they officially revealed the PlayStation Slim, the PlayStation 4 Slim, and the much-rumored PlayStation Neo, which it turns out is actually going to be called the PlayStation Pro. So we'll get to what we'll get to today is what the PlayStation 4 Pro isn't, what the PlayStation 4 Pro is, and then we'll hit some of your tweets and try to unpack this thing. Before I started the came down to record the podcast, I was thinking, man, there's a lot to unpack here, and I'm the more I think about it and kind of look at what they threw out there today, the less I think there really is to talk about. It's really pretty simple outside of a few buzzwords. But before we get to that, let's get the housekeeping out of the way. Obviously, if you're here, you know RetroGameFix.com. That's where you can find us. You can find us iTunes, RSS, whatever application you are using to listen. Thank you. If you leave a 5-star review on iTunes, though, that would be awesome. Probably read that on the show. Otherwise, YouTube.com, Twitter.com, Facebook.com/RetroGameFix. Otherwise, questions at RetroGameFix.com or 678-995-5103. So let's get into it. We all knew this was coming, and I'm going to try to stay on PlayStation, but it's going to be almost impossible. I'm going to try to keep it PlayStation centric, but it's going to be almost impossible to do that without referencing the Xbox One S, the Xbox Scorpio, and PC, really. So let's get down to it. First things first, let's just get it out of the way. They did officially announce the PlayStation Slim. It's going to be $299. It's replacing the old PlayStation. I did a podcast about this once before. That is not uncommon for them to release a new console, not add any features, cut costs, and get a new one on the shelves. But so this time around, we're in this iterative console release cycle. I'm not going to go deep into the what console gamers started complaining about, and let me again get this out of there. If you have not listened to the show before, I will reference PC gamers and console gamers. That is not meant to say one is better than the other. It is also not meant to start a console flame war. That's not where we're at. Again, if you look at the Twitter, I have all of the consoles and PC, and I play equally on all of them, including all of the retro systems that we talk about on the Retro Jones podcast. But it's the easiest way to reference. Don't get offended. It's just the easiest way to reference the gamers of both, because there seems to always be, I'm a PC gamer, I'm a console gamer. I am both a console gamer and a PC gamer. But speaking in general, you have two different groups of people as far as who's arguing what. So, before we get into PlayStation Pro, I just want to hit on that a little further. So, this is the first generation, and I've said this on other podcasts as well. You can go back and check them out if you're interested. But it's the first generation where we've really seen console gamers concerned about what was once kind of a PC exclusive worry in resolution and frame rate. On PC, always, if you're on PC and you're a PC gamer, the reason you're there and probably paying that premium is because you want to be on that cutting edge. You want the high resolution. You want, 60 frames per second technically is really the target there, even higher now with 144 hertz monitors. And so you get this backlash and this arguing among gamers, console gamers, that is when the first systems came out was PlayStation 4 does 1080p 60. Xbox One is upscaling to 1080p, right? And that was a big thing. And I was kind of flabbergasted by it because it's like, I didn't realize console gamers were that concerned. Now, I'm going to be a little bit of a hypocrite because I did find it embarrassing that the Xbox One came out, and at the time, 1080p was the standard and was hitting 900p. That said, fast forward to today, and all of a sudden 4K upscaling is acceptable. And I think that leads into what the PS4 Pro isn't. The PS4 Pro is not a native 4K gaming system. They didn't throw specs out there, and I'm assuming they didn't throw specs out there because Xbox One threw specs out there at E3 and said they were running 6.5 teraflops on the Xbox One or the Xbox Scorpio. PlayStation didn't come out and say that. They actually did a smart marketing move in avoiding that completely and saying, and again, I'm paraphrasing, we're not going to force 4K through brute force. We're going to do it through rendering. So what that means is they're going to do it through upscaling. So that's what the 4K is, the PS4 Pro is. So what it isn't, it's not a native 4K gaming platform. It can't be, especially at $399. It's $399. And I'm not saying that's still not a great value. I just want to get that out there because it is an asterisk that we need to be cognizant of. That this thing, despite what console gamers are going to throw around for 4K, it's not that, right? It also isn't a 4K Blu-ray player, which is mind-boggling to me. I can't believe it's not going to natively play 4K Blu-rays. Again, whether people are actually buying physical media at this point, I think is a bit null. But again, $399. So what is it? Well, it's a 4K upscaling game platform that can output video at 4K through streaming services like Netflix and probably PlayStation View. It also is a platform that can output HDR. I'm confused a little bit about the HDR output because some of that is reliant on your television. And so the fact that they're touting that is a little confusing to me. The other piece of it that I want to highlight before we get any deeper here is they snuck this in at the end of the keynote. HDR is going to be patched in to the normal PlayStation 4. So their entire pitch was about HDR, essentially, and how great it's going to be. And then at the end, they're like, by the way, we can patch that into the old PlayStation 4 with a firmware update. So that's a huge win. I mean, it is for everybody. HDR works, but it's really dependent on your TV's ability to accept that kind of signal. So what else is it? Well, it's got an upgraded GPU. It's got an overclocked CPU, and that's what it is. So the PlayStation 4 Pro, I mean, it really is in line with this gen, and they made that clear. This is this gen. This PlayStation 4 Pro is essentially in place to take advantage of HDR, which again, is the normal consoles are going to be able to do, and provide more power that can provide better frame rates. And, if developers take advantage, could probably load in better texture packs, things like that, dependent on the PlayStation you're playing on. So if you're playing on the PS4 Pro, They're going to see that and say, hey, we can load these better texture packs or this better anti-aliasing, all of that good stuff. And so is that worth $399? I'm a bit conflicted at this point. When I first watched it and first started seeing it, I said, you know what? Yeah, I'm in. You know what? HDR support, 4K upscaling. You know what? You're going to get better frame rates. All of this sounds awesome. It's an extra $100. And for me, I actually, in anticipation of this, I actually sold one of my PS4s. I have two, one in the basement and one upstairs in my living room. I sold one of them with the expectation that I would upgrade my PS4. And for, in full disclosure, pre-orders were available on Amazon. They don't build till they ship, so I did put a pre-order in, but whether I'll keep it or not, we'll have to see. It just depends what else comes out about it. And so that's kind of what you're left with. So really, what is the extra $100 getting you since they announced HDR support that can be patched in via firmware updates for the rest of the PS4s? The extra $100 is getting you the better GPU and the better CPU, which in turn could get you better frame rates and better texture packs. Now, they did not mention that developer support would be required. They said they would leave it up to the developers to decide how they wanted to utilize that power. It was rumored in a previous Giant Bomb leak, I believe when Patrick Klepek was still there, that they would require developers to hit a couple key milestones with 60 frames per second, I think, at least. But it doesn't seem that that's the case. Just in the messaging today, it really was, we will rely on the developer. We'll leave it up to the developers to take advantage of it as they see fit. And that's another pretty big what if, right? You saw EA coming out and saying, hey, Mass Effect Andromeda or Armageddon or whatever the hell it's called. Call of Duty, Battlefield, Frost Engine stuff, all of this. Hey, this is going to take advantage of this. This is very similar to the way PCs can scale. So I hope it's taken advantage of. But the rumor was this is a 4.5 teraflops processing power. Again, not going to get into all of that. Versus the 1.5 of the PlayStation 4. So it's going to upscale. It's going to load in better texture packs, and then it's going to be able to up some anti-aliasing, some of that stuff. I think that's really why it's called the PS4 Pro. Excuse me. And so, is that worth the money? I don't know. I need another one. I'm probably going to pick it up because I need another one. Plus, anytime new hardware like this comes out, I feel like I want to get it and try it out. And I love the PS4. Like I said, I just got rid of mine. Kind of out of the fact, a couple of reasons. I do a lot of sim racing, so I've been playing a lot on the Xbox One. But also, I kind of assumed that this was going to get announced in selling my other PlayStation. The price would have really, really tanked, especially with the sales that were going on. So I got rid of one of them because it was a little ridiculous to have two, one of which I barely played. And so, you know, this is another area where I say, you know, this is one of those conversations where you can say, who is this for? Well, if console gamers want to be concerned about frame rates and resolutions, and they've made it clear that $399 is the price point, based on the fact that the Xbox One died at $499. This is what you're going to get, because native 4K gaming is expensive, and it takes more than $399 to get there. Put it that way. So, what's that leave us with? Well, I mean, and as far as competition goes, well, this is where I kind of want to loop in the Xbox One S. The Xbox One S, on the other hand, starts at $299. You get the 4K Blu-ray player, you get the HDR, and you get the 4K upscaling. Now, that's for the 500 gig model. The PS4 Pro is going to give you the terabyte. You can plug in a cheap external hard drive. The storage space thing bothers me either way. I don't really want to argue that point right now because none of it's enough space really for how much it should actually cost the consumer. It's just kind of ridiculous that they still put a premium on space. But let's just say the Xbox One S at $299 versus the base PS4 Slim now. PS4 Slim does nothing, still 500 gig. The Xbox One S gets you that 4K Blu-ray player, gets you the 4K upscaling, and then gets you the HDR, which the PlayStation 4 Slim is also going to get patched in. And so, from that standpoint, the Xbox One S probably has the edge. Now, this is pure hardware conversation. You're going to game where your friends are, and you're going to game where the games you want to play are, right? So I'm not getting into that. Again, not trying to start this huge flame war, console war, but those are the hardware facts. What works best for you, that's ultimately up to you. The part that I'm waiting to see play out is I wonder how Microsoft responds with the Xbox Scorpio, right? Because it was reported that that was going to be 6.5 teraflops. And on a console, I'm still not convinced. By the time that thing comes out, if it's early 2017, first quarter, second quarter 2017, I'm not convinced 6.5 teraflops is going to be enough to do native 4K gaming, even on a closed platform. So are you really going to get more than the PlayStation 4 Neo? I mean, if you think about it, you're going to get better frame rates. You're going to get better resolutions, technically. You're going to get 4K upscaling. You're going to get HDR. Well, all of that except the, better frame rates and the possibility of higher resolution, better textures or anti-aliasing, other effects, etc. Is that going to be worth the money? I don't know. I can't answer that. We're in this weird half step for console games that I don't think. I think the companies in Microsoft and Sony are probably happy about it because now they get a half step in order to sell us more products. I don't think they thought console gamers were going to get on this resolution frame rate bandwagon like they did, and they did. I guess we should have expected it because of console wars being what they are. But man, it's interesting. It's interesting, and it's also interesting to see how fast Microsoft can get the Xbox One S in people's hands and what that price point's going to be. Because I feel like now it needs to be $399. I feel like it needs to be $399. It has to be $399 because Microsoft's already proved the market themselves that people aren't paying $499 if there's another console on the market at $399. And the fact is, if the only difference is that 4K Blu-ray player, no one's spending an extra $100 on a physical media 4K Blu-ray player. It's mind-boggling that Sony didn't put it in, but I bet that's what got them down to that $399 price point. And they might be subsidizing and eating some cash at that price as well. So, anyway, I put out a tweet asking about questions, and I got a lot of feedback. And so, Reverend Dr. Hazardman said, all of those HD remasters are going to look extra pretty in 4K. Yeah, that's what, that's one of those things. That's certainly there's going to be support moving into other games, but it's like, how many times are we going to see more games that are, this now supports the PlayStation 4 Neo, buy the DLC to make it happen, or buy this new Super Collector's Game of the Year edition? I don't know. I'm not going to put it past them because it's another SKU that they can patch in support for the PlayStation Neo, and I wouldn't be surprised if they charged for it. Mark Williams, thank you for the tweet. He says, I'm starting to wonder if this is the reason some of their games were getting delayed this year. Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And there's a tweet coming up here, but I think that they were probably also getting delayed to not only support the PlayStation Neo architecture and getting that, the PlayStation 4 Pro hardware and getting that in place, but also that needs to coincide with the VR launch, PlayStation VR launch. I bet that's why a lot of games have gotten delayed. That's a good point. And that's not a good look. And that said, at Baller 0385, Matt. Now you know what else? Stop throwing everyone's full names out there, unless I guess it's on Twitter. But Matt Vaselli says, think it's kind of a dumb move if you put out your VR in October for $400 and the problem for another $400. Yeah, that's another great point. I mean, and one that I alluded to prior since I read the street earlier. Yeah, you're saying, hey, you want PSVR? Hey, PSVR works with your other PlayStation, HDR, blah 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 blah. But we've got this better PlayStation to sell you too. That's $800. Now you get into the point where you could start to go, okay, do I want to jump to PC? I'm not saying it's for everybody, right? PC's not for everybody. But now we're starting to get in that price point where you're starting to talk a pretty decent gaming PC at $800. Now you're not going to get the VR mixed in because VR is expensive on PC right now. I mean, a nice PC, not just, bare minimum, a nice PC plus the VR headsets after tax, everything else. You're looking at $2,000. I know people are going to say you can do it less, you can do it less, you can do it less. It's going to be $2,000 with the headset. Get out of here with the rest of the cheap ass way to do it. It's going to be $2,000. So yeah, I mean, it's also going to be a marketing nightmare. But the other part is I don't think people are not used to multiple SKUs. We've had multiple SKUs in the past, PS3 and Xbox. And so it's, hey, the extra $100 gets you this. Right? Now, I don't know how salespeople and the internet and Sony's marketing is going to quantify this, because in order to show you the benefits of HDR and the 4K upscaling, you need the HDR and a 4K TV to see the difference. So if you don't have that, right, it's probably not going to be worth it. Now, if you're thinking about upgrading, right, if you're thinking about getting a 4K TV that has HDR support, it's probably worth looking into it. HDR does go a long way from what it looks like. I haven't been able to see it. I actually have a 4K TV in my basement, but I got it before the HDR stuff was a thing. So I don't have HDR in it, so I could not tell you. But we'll have to see how they market that along with PSVR. I've seen some PSVRs in Best Buy, and I'm like, having owned the Oculus Rift Dev Kit, I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm putting that PSVR that's been on 900 people's heads on my face. Alan Awasuk, butchering that name, player, I'm sorry. I'm buying the Pro since I don't have a PS4. Yeah, spend the extra $100. Why not? Right? Why not spend the extra $100? And I think that's why maybe they're pricing it that way. I think it's a valid point. If you don't have a PS4 and you want to get one, why not spend $399 and get the Pro? The only thing is, I mean, that given that you want the PS4 and you want to buy this year, it's in before the holiday season. Otherwise, it might be worth waiting on Xbox Scorpio, see what they have. See what they really have coming. Who knows? I mean, Xbox hasn't had a ton of games rolling out lately either. Maybe they're holding back on some announcements until they announce Scorpio. Couple conversations. King JJ, thank you. He's pointed out the Xbox One S is $100 less, which I hit on earlier. And Mike Hernan said, Blu-ray doesn't seem as important because most people are streaming movies. That is 100% correct. And, this applies for Xbox One S and PS4K. Netflix does some 4K streaming. I would note with 4K that not all 4K is created equal. Some of the bit rates come into play. A 4K Blu-ray is going to look better than 4K streaming. It just is. Even with HDR and other stuff. But now we're talking video file kind of stuff here. But if you really want the true 4K experience, you're still going to want that on Blu-ray. But I don't think that's what probably matters to most people. King JJ also said, I think they took a step back. Yeah. I mean, technically speaking, they didn't really take a step back because they're offering more at the $399 price point. But being a half step, and the fact that they can patch HDR into into the normal PlayStation 1, yeah, you might get some games with 60 frames per second versus 30, which is great on multiplayer games and first-person shooters. You're going to get some of the extra textures, ALEC, and whatever else they might implement, but there's no guarantee what games, how many games, what devs are going to take advantage of that, on those systems. So we'll have to see where this lands. One other note I want to bring up that King JJ brought up was the PlayStation Network, right? PlayStation Network went up to $59 from $49, and I don't know about everyone else. And again, people can say this is bullshit, but the PlayStation Network always downloads slow as hell for me. And no, it's not my internet, and no, it's not the fact that I'm not set up for anything. My Xbox One downloads fast as hell, and for a use case, Steam flies, like maxes my internet. Maxes my internet to the point where it makes my internet unusable unless I put a rule in place to put a bandwidth cap on Steam. PlayStation Network is slow. So they better take that $10 and make PlayStation Network faster. Otherwise, it's just stupid. So yeah, I mean, it's back to Microsoft's move. They kind of forced Sony's hand. I'm going to keep my pre-order for now because I'd like to get another PlayStation 4, and I already sold my other one. And quite honestly, if I was going to, I was just telling my girlfriend before I came down to the podcast, I was saying, if I sold that other PlayStation, and it would just be ridiculous for me to go back and just buy another PlayStation 1, having just got rid of the other one. In order to buy this one, I almost feel obligated. So I'll probably keep that pre-order, but as far as half steps go, it's a little ridiculous. The only other thing I would note is with Xbox, Microsoft, and again, I've thrown out some serial at nights on this before, so go back and look. A couple of them are titled iterative console releases. You'll know looking at the title. But for Xbox, I probably won't buy the Scorpio. And now that most of the first-party published Microsoft games are going to be cross-buy for Xbox One and PC. I have a pretty nice PC, and so most likely I'll still pre-order digital on Xbox One and get the PC version, and with the cross-save, I'll probably just either play it on my whatever Xbox One that's in my living room. Otherwise, I'll play it on PC and have the upgraded graphics and stuff there, which is already more powerful than what the Xbox Scorpio is going to be. So I think that's worth noting as well. So that wraps it up. I'm sure I will think of more things as the night goes on, so I'll save it for another podcast. But I wanted to get my first reactions to the PlayStation 4 Pro on a podcast and get it out to everybody. I also want to thank everybody that tweeted into the show. I always appreciate that. It makes the show go a lot better, and I just love hearing from everybody, man. And it's one of those things where, you know what? Everyone doesn't always need to agree, but the conversation is always fun, and I feel like that's always fun and good for gaming as well. Not when you have the flame wars and fanboy wars, but just honest conversation about what is being offered and what's being sold. And I used to cheese on it, kind of make fun of it, but yeah, it's still a great time to be a gamer. And there's more options out there than ever, and none of these things are required for you to buy this generation. So game where you want to play. And again, thanks for listening. My name is Mike, RetroGameFix.com, Serial at Night, episode number 41. See ya!